All right, I'm early, 10 minutes. Looks like just you and me, William, for now. And Matt. What's up, Matt and William? All right, let me just go here and change my name to Tristan. There we go. All right, so we're early, guys, and we're just going to chill here and wait. This is going to be a great one. Let me just check who else will be on with us. Oh, this is such a good one. Oh, good. Let me hit up AJ. AJ. Hey, buddy, can you email? What's up, buddy?
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Just typing away here, making sure that I get everything wrapped up before we, 8 minutes, 9 minutes?
I gotcha.
One more time. Okay, one more time and let them know. Really good. It's on in 8 minutes.
I know you were laughing Friday night at my weak webinar skills of only being able to do 3 a day. So,
dude, don't even worry about it. It's fine.
One day I'll be up to you to do 16 a day, but until then.
This is my only job. So, besides real estate. So I get you. You have to do research, right?
It's 3 or 4 a day for me. If it's an hour, it will probably realistically spend half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. We can do questions and, kind of the stuff that we do, but I definitely don't have an hour worth of content unless we talk for a while.
Yeah, dude, we'll go. I thought, because last time you finished about 30 minutes, right? That was about, and that's right. And then we had some questions. So we finished about 45 minutes. That was perfect.
Yeah. So I'll say, you say, front end, like it will spend the next 30 or 45 minutes together, kind of thing.
Perfect. Let's do that. I was planning for a total of 45 minutes. You good with that?
Yeah, totally.
All right, cool. And we'll have Paul on as well. Paul is the regional director for almost all of Southern California for Keller Williams. So okay. His name's Paul Morris. So you'll see him on in a little bit. And then hopefully Facebook works and I can play this into Lab Code Agents and the Keller
cool. All right.
group so that we can get a few thousand views off of this.
Cool. Yeah.
It didn't work this morning though. So I had to, hopefully with what I did.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the miracle of all this and, however many we've done internally, we've only had problems with one where the stream key changed or whatever they, did something weird. But the fact that Zoom has been able to make it through all this is a miracle in itself.
Dude, it's pretty sweet, right? So I talked to them the other day while
I saw you had them on. Yeah.
So I talked to them and I asked them, I said, so why is it that sometimes you have this issue where you have like hundreds of people on and all of a sudden I can tell the difference, the streaming quality dies, right? And he's like, look, I think that's a glitch on our end, but here, let me explain to you how it works. I'm like, okay, good, because I wanted to know. So as soon as we jump on, so you, me, and let's say 100 people. Well, what happens is they divide those 100 people between a lot of servers.
Okay.
So that it never really weighs down one server.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, our coders from the very beginning decided to just spread everything out between lots of servers. I go, that makes more sense. I thought it was all like, here's 100 people for this server. Now let's switch over to this server. And then no, it's just, it alternates, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. But what was his reason for, like, if a particular server gets overloaded or something like that?
He says that sometimes the transition between when lots of people are coming in at the same time,
I gotcha.
then all of a sudden it kind of slows down the staggering, right?
Mhm.
Because if it let them all in all at once, it could shut down the systems. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that whole thing that happened with social media when I don't know, it was like 2-3 years ago when they had somehow hacked into the back end of our phones and we're trying to log into Facebook and lots of other websites all at the same time, and it shut down social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
similar to that. So, um,
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's amazing we've been able to use Zoom the way we have for the last 8 weeks now, or whatever it is, with very little challenge. They've met the demand for sure.
yeah, they've done a good job, dude. They've done a
Mhm.
really good job. I'm happy with them. All right, dude, we got a few people on here. Let's give it a few minutes. We're early. Remember, we're real estate agents, so we show up on time or a little later. William, what's up, William? I've been liking all your content. Thanks so much. Sounds like you have the ears of the developers of Command and the websites. Please tell them on the mobile version. The drop-down window is always closed. Some clients, William, yeah, I told them that already. That's just one of the things that's broken on Command. So I have a list for them, and they're on it, but it takes a little bit. Sorry, William. I know. I wish that they'd fix it sooner too, but there's a glitch in Facebook too. When you get the Facebook leads, some are seeing the glitch, some are not. So that kind of sucks too on our end. But William, if you were on 2 weeks ago, Blake and I did a whole webinar on just running leads through Facebook Ads Manager. So you may want to take a look at that. And that way you don't have to rely on Command. Oh, you go directly to Facebook. You can try that too. It's on our YouTube channel. So, dude, where are you out of?
Who, me?
Yeah, where are you out of, David?
I am out of Richmond, Virginia. So that's about an hour and a half east of DC. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I've been there. I like it. It's a good place.
It's getting warm here, slowly but surely. Little cool days here this week, but summer's trying to make an appearance.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you're in LA, right, Tristan?
I'm in LA, dude. I'm in LA, and on the webinar portion of this, mostly everybody's going to be SoCal, so Southern California.
Okay. Cool.
And then if we play it into lab coats and it works, then
it'll be everybody. Yeah.
Dude, the last month we've had an international uptick where we had 300 people from Portugal out of nowhere.
That's cool.
Which was kind of cool. So now we're like, hey, everybody from Portugal, let us know what city you're from. And so it's kind of cool. I don't know how that happened.
That is good. That is good.
So now we have to have an LCA event in Portugal, man.
There you go.
Yeah. That's another excuse to travel outside of the US. Yeah. So we'll be good. Now, guys, as you're joining us, so we'll start seeing a few more people. Let us know what city you're from, because I know all of you are from SoCal. I'm in Newbury Park, exactly Newbury Park, California, which is Thousand Oaks or closer to Westlake Village or Malibu. I'm like 15 minutes away from both. So
yeah.
And got Anaheim, Glendale. Dude, are you familiar with the LA region, David, or no?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Spent half my life out there.
Oh, nice, man. So then you'll recognize all these people jumping in Manhattan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Newport Beach, Long Beach, all that good stuff. All right. Hilda's got a question. Hey, guys, thanks for all the webinars. Do you know anyone who can set up and train me on Command for pay? Hilda, we're in the process of creating that. It's through a company called Virtue Desk. So if you give us a couple more weeks, we'll have that option so that we can train or we can have a virtual assistant kind of set up everything for you on Command. So we're in the process of doing that with the company Virtue Desk. So we got you covered. Just give us a couple of weeks on that. And it's 10. All right, so now we'll have a lot more people show up. Let me see if I can play this into lab coats and see if Paul's going to jump in as well. Crossing my fingers here. Dude, the last few webinars we've done on lab coats, you and I, those
Yeah.
were like insanely popular.
Oh, good, good. Glad to hear it.
I think you and I were the first people to jump on and tell the world about anything that was happening, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That got a lot of momentum. And then everybody caught on. It's like, oh, that's right. They know what they're doing. Dave, we need Dave on too.
No, it is. It is. I think that first Tuesday that we were on together, that's been 8 weeks ago now. I think this is the eighth week.
Nuts, right?
7th or 8th week. So.
All right, let me open up Safari as a browser, see if it's going to work on there. Give me a sec. And if not, we'll record this and we'll just, we'll post it up right after the lab code agents. And yeah, it's not going to be working.
Anthony, I see your comment in there, excited for this as well. I've got some new stuff in here, depending on how much of this you've seen. So even today, we'll talk about some things coming out this week that'll be very, very, I want to use the word exciting, but I don't know if that's the right word. There's a lot of news coming out this week that I want to keep everybody up to date with.
All right, all right, dude, let's just get this thing started. It didn't let me post it to Lab Code Agents, but
Okay.
The recording will go on there today.
Okay.
So as soon as I download it, I'll just re-upload it and then I'll blast it to all our thousands of people. So let's get right going. David, welcome. Appreciate you being on again for the 80th time. We love you and KCM. You guys are always bringing just the right content for the right time. I think that's the important thing, right? It's all about timing. And you guys are on it. So, dude, go ahead and get started. Just introduce yourself for those of you, the people that are listening who don't know David. David, tell us about you.
Absolutely. So, Tristan, thank you for just the chance to come together again and talk about what's going on in the market. We're going to talk about some of the questions out in the market and maybe cover some stuff that you maybe heard from before, give you an update on that. But keeping current matters, what we call KCM, we really are a team of now 26 people that work every day to deliver what's happening in the market, to be able to answer that question for you, what's going on so that you can confidently serve buyers and sellers and people in the market with everything they have going on. So I'm excited, Tristan, just to spend a few minutes today, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and just talk through that and maybe some questions and just everything that's happening right now.
I love it. So here's Paul Morris. Paul, meet David Childers. He's out of Keeping Current Matters, and he's their head marketing, content, research guy. And every time he jumps on, dude, you've seen some of the stuff I post, like graphs and everything. I get them from David. So
oh yeah,
you're gonna love this stuff. And Paul, happy late birthday to you, buddy.
Thank you. And David, you were part of the John Maxwell organization as well, so that's pretty cool.
That's going back a while, but yeah, I did. I started my career working for John when I was in college. We could do an hour on that too.
Good starting place. I've had some fun with him as well.
That is cool. It's very good to meet you, and I'm excited just to get to spend a few minutes today talking and about just what's happening in the market. So thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Love it. All right, Dave, let's do this.
Want to do it? All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so we can get rolling. All right, so we're going to talk just a little bit about some of the biggest questions, in the market today. And I want to start, this way. We're going to kind of talk about recovery, and then we'll hit a couple of things around, some comparisons to 2008, which maybe if you've seen me present before or seen Keeping Current Matters before, will be a reminder, but we've got some new information there. And then we're going to start talking about, hey, what's going on right now? What are some threats we're seeing? kind of pop up. So with that as a backdrop, let's start with this first idea of when is the economy going to recover? Because no matter where you're at, a lot of people on here, I know in Southern California, and Tristan, I think we'll share this on the lab coat page as well, maybe all over the country. But this question of what's happening with recovery, and depending on where we're at, different things are happening, different states, and kind of coming back online. And we're hearing a lot of things right now. We started out 7 weeks ago talking about this V recovery, and so let's kind of go with an update in that perspective as we get started. And I kind of threw some words up here on the screen of things that we're hearing right now about recovery. Is it going to be a V? This traditional down and then back up. We're starting to hear a U-shaped recovery. Introduced, I think, a few weeks back was this idea of a W. We're going to go down, we're going to come up, and we might go down again and come back up. And, a number of different words being thrown out there, a check mark, a tick, this Nike swoosh recovery. And suffice it to say, there are a lot of terms that are being thrown into the mix. Typically, what you see when you start to look at economic recoveries, you see the idea predominantly in the past of a V, a U, or an L-shaped recovery. So today, whether you call it a V, whether you call it a U, the good news that I would bring is nobody's talking about an L-shaped recovery. And an L-shaped recovery is really what what we had back in 2008. And I'm going to throw a big, kind of Ghostbusters sign over that, if you remember that. In nobody's talking about us going down and then staying down, which again is what happened in 2008. It took us a long time to recover from it. So there's a lot of confusion in the market. I'll point you even to the KCM blog today. If you don't read that blog, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to it. You don't have to be a member of KCM. We'll deliver it to your box every
David,
morning.
what's the link to that so I can post it in the chat box?
Yeah, it's kcmblog.com. You can go to keepingcurrentmatters.com and see it as well, but it's kcmblog.com. We wrote on it today. There is confusion among economic experts about what recovery is going to look like. So let me address the confusion and help you maybe make some sense of that. And there are three things that I want to talk about that lead to that confusion. And you can see them on the screen. The first is the business science. Now, this is what typically an economist has to deal with. And that is, how has the economy rebounded from similar slowdowns in the past? And I'm going to talk about some of that science in just a minute. But typically an economist is going to say, okay, this is what's happening. What's happened in the past in this country or in this world when we face this type of situation? And how have we, responded to it economically? Now, you could say, certainly, we've never faced something like this in the past. And, the near future, maybe 100 years ago, there's a lot of, correlations drawn then. But trying to take events of the past to predict how we're going to go in the future. So that's normally what an economist does. The second thing today that an economist has to deal with is the health science. And that's really this question of when will the COVID-19 virus be under control? Will there be another flare-up of the virus this fall? We talked about a W-shaped recovery. That would be another flare-up, and we go down and go back up at some point. But this idea of health science is a question that economists have to factor into projections they're making. And I don't think there's anybody out there, when we look and you think about Dr. Fossey and the ones that are, leading the charge from a health perspective, nobody's sitting there saying on this date, we will be over this. No, they're looking for this kind of plateau effect and what are the signs we know on the other side? And then, hey, how do we not reopen too early? Goldman Sachs released an article not too long ago saying, they really coined it threading the needle. Of really bringing the economy back online, but not doing it in such a way that would compromise people's health. And then third, an economist has to deal today with what I'm going to call the people science. And that's after businesses are up and going, fully operational, how long will it take for American consumers to return to a normal consumption pattern and go out and have a meal and go to the movies or get in an airplane? All questions today that have to be answered. Okay. So when you start to see confusion, you see somebody saying this about recovery, somebody saying that, it comes from all of the things that are intersecting right now to be able to make those decisions. But I want to turn just a minute in review with you. You may have seen these before, but I want to remind you of the science behind it. Zillow came out with a study and said, hey, during epidemics such as the 1918 influenza or the 2003 SARS outbreak, economic activity fell sharply during the epidemic, but snapped back quickly once the epidemic was over. John Burns Consulting, history tells us, historical analysis showed us that pandemics are usually V-shaped, sharp recessions that recover quickly enough to provide little damage to home prices. And Harvard did a study where they said V-shapes monopolize the empirical landscape of prior shocks, including epidemics such as SARS, H3N2, and H2N2, and the Spanish flu. And so when we look back in history, the overwhelming amount of evidence is that V-shapes monopolize. That word monopolize comes out of a Harvard study where every pandemic and epidemic that they studied economically represented a V-shape. And if you don't want to call it a V, don't call it a V. I'm not sitting here saying you have to call it a V. I'm telling you what experts have said about what happens in the past. Technically, if you want to talk about a U-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery begins with a slow, gradual descent. And we didn't have a slow, gradual descent. In the first quarter, the pause button was pressed on the U.S. economy due to this external health crisis, and we shot down. Now, we've got some updates to that I'm going to bring to you right now. And we'll start kind of right here with what major financial institutions are calling for. And we see I believe it was the end of last week, we got the first quarter, what they call the initial advanced estimate of GDP, and it fell by 4.8%, negative 4.8%. So in the first quarter, the economy constricted by 4.8%. In these financial institutions, we're calling for that anywhere from 5 to 10%. One had said we might not see a little bit of slip in the first quarter. We may still be positive, but at the end of the day, the forecasts were fairly accurate for this constriction in the economy. And then coming in here to where we're at right now, the second quarter, a massive constriction going down 30-40%, a number many times over what we saw in the first quarter. And then the second half of the year, like we talked about, as we start to bring the economy online, we should start to see economic improvement. And you can see 3 out of 4 financial institutions in the third quarter are calling for positive GDP. 4 out of 4 in the fourth quarter are calling for positive GDP. But suffice it to say, as we turn the corner to the second half of the year, we should see momentum in the economy as businesses come back online. And there are a lot of questions to answer there, and I'm going to address some of those. But that's really when you look at it from what financial experts, what institutions are calling for. It's this down and this back up. Again, you don't want to call it a V, don't call it a V. You want to call it a U, call it a U. But being able to turn the economy around once we can come back online. I want to bring in here a quote from Freddie Mac, from Sam Cantor, who's the chief economist. He says, although the uncertainty of the crisis means forecasts of economic activity are more unclear than usual, what we just talked about, we expect that most of the economic damage from the virus will be contained to the first half of the year. And going forward, we should see a recovery starting in the second half of 2020. So as we start this out and we start about, hey, what's going on with recovery? The idea that it should be contained to the first half of the year, and we should see this pick up in the overall economy in the second half of the year is what I would bring to you, widely, considered by the experts, to what is going to play out here. Now, the interesting thing is, what does that mean for our business? And I pulled a graph quickly from showing time. And this is the impact of just the virus to showings in North America. And so you see, as we kind of start out the year, we're having more and more showings. And these are now, with showing time, these are in-person and virtual showings. And then you see those just fall off the map there in March, but also bottom out and start to pick up. really agents, all of you on the call, innovating to be able to do what you can do, however you can do it, whether it be virtually, whether it be, through social distancing, and you're able to get someone in the house that, feels comfortable with that, the homeowner feels comfortable with it. But this bottom effect and more showings happening. So that's as I kind of wind up this first question, that's what our team is watching right now. What's happening with showings each week? What's happening with, pending transactions as we go forward? And let me be clear, the news that's going to come out now about the March market, about the April market, is going to be dramatic. And it is going to be, for lack of a better word, look disastrous in our business. But I would ask you, what would you expect to have had happen when everyone retreated to their homes out of fear for contracting the virus? That is going to happen, but we're seeing this uptick coming out of it. What we know right now too, and I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, is that buyers are starting to enter into the market. So that gives us a perspective on what we see relative to recovery. What I want to do is I want to kind of turn the conversation here to, is this going to be 2008 all over again? But before I do that, Tristan, any questions on what we talked about before?
I think Paul has a question here.
Yeah. First of all, I want to know, are you going to make the graphs available to us? Is that possible?
Absolutely. I will tell you, we have a couple of resources for that. You can go to Keeping Current Matters /coronavirus and get all the most up-to-date slides. That's what's most important. But I'll send these to you, Paul. You can get these out to everybody.
And then one of the things too, because I'm always thinking about what, the information that we're getting on this webinar, what's useful to whom. And one of the things that keeps running around in my brain is that these slides and this information are critically important to realtors as they speak to their clients.
Absolutely.
So there's no question about that. Because one of the things, unlike, if I were in a restaurant business, or if I were in a business maybe that had inventory that we owned. Of course, we have inventory, but that inventory belongs to somebody else. So, the things that we're thinking about in a shift as realtors is cutting our expenses absolutely bare bone, and getting more and more active in lead generation, but we're just calling it sort of more active in the contact with our people. So as I'm looking at this, the predictive value is super important, but I'm like, if I'm a realtor, how am I going to change my behavior? But we still want to know the information. But the key here is to get a hold of information sources like Keeping Current Matters, so that we can be the information warehouse, the information gurus for our clients. Because if you have answers like this that David's sharing, then you then become the most informed person in the room, and better yet, most informed realtor in your neighborhood. Then you really, really have something.
Yeah. That idea about there's two things that are happening in the market. I'll tell you, talking to a lot of agents and a lot of people over, Tristan and I were talking about as we got started, just over the last several weeks, as we've all been dealing with this. Clients will either be educated by the media, and I'm going to say in a way that media is designed to get you, or TV is designed to get you to watch more TV, right? Not with the necessary, impetus to bring you everything that matters. And we have the choice now with technology today to be able to get the message out. This is the first crisis that we've widely faced, that we have a platform like Zoom here, that we can go live on Facebook, we can deliver information, and we can deliver. This is what's happening in the housing market. And I pulled my phone up as you were talking, Paul, and I want to read you a text that I got from an agent over the weekend, because I had heard a story about about agents that, and we are certainly talking about it. Hey, pull together everybody that you've been talking to that's thought about selling this year, that and say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom meeting so that I can update you on the market. Let's pull together everybody that's thought about buying. Let me tell you what's happening in the market. In this text right here, it says our first seller webinar had 87 registrants, 35 of those showed up, and 2 very serious listing leads. So using technology, using this information to get in front of people and deliver to them, this is what's happening in the market. But your point exactly, Paul. So Tristan, any other questions? I'm not watching the questions. I'll let you.
Well, hold on, there's a question. That's a different question now. I put up the link for Keeping Current Matters for the blog so that everybody can download the links there. And then I know you'll send me that later and to Paul, and then we can share that with the region as well. So that'll be
absolutely
good. I had a question on your previous screen, not the last one you showed with the lady thinking or doing whatever she was doing, but the one
that was showing time.
Yeah, I had a question about the red arrow at the bottom going up towards the yellow one. Let's see. Can you reshare that one?
Yeah, let's go back and take a look at it.
So the one right before this one, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So at the bottom there, you see that red line, the red arrow going upwards. This data that you're gathering, is it just from the MLSs all around North America? Because I think that red arrow may be a little longer, no? Or how do we determine how long that red arrow is going to be?
You mean the bottom of the trough kind of?
I feel like in some areas that can be extended too, right?
Absolutely. So this is showing time data. And if you go to showingtime.com, you can pull the data from your state and from your area. So this is national data. We deal in macro data, US data. And so I think being able to show people this is what's happening across the country, but here's what's happening where we live or where you're serving would absolutely be appropriate. So one trick I'll tell people, if you are a KCM subscriber, on any of these slides, when you get them, and you'll get it when I send these to you, if you go to the notes of the slide, it has the source link for all the data. And I would highly, highly encourage you to go there, because sharing something and not being informed is almost worse than sharing nothing at all. Because when people ask questions, you need to be able to address those questions. But it's macro US data to answer your question, Tristan.
Love it. Cool, man. Then how I can print. Oh, no.
And one of the things that we'll do is, but I appreciate you telling us about the source data too, because real estate, as we all know, really is micro market. And one of the things that we're doing in our offices is, sharing mini market updates. So that's a key place for it too. And I haven't been to showingtimes.com, so I'm going to look forward to going and check that out as well.
Yeah, it's an excellent resource. And this idea, because I want to park on this just for a second longer, putting information out in this market like this today with the society we live in, be prepared for people to say you're wrong. Step into that conversation. And when I go back and I share this information, so I'll give you a quick example. So let me go back into these slides and let's talk about this real quick. Harvard did a study of every pandemic and every epidemic in the history of this country, and everyone was V-shaped economically. Now, somebody may say, well, that's not going to happen, or this time is different, or there are many questions to answer, and there are. And if somebody has data that's, comparable to the Harvard Business Review or comparable to what we're seeing, then I would say, if I was you and I was having that conversation, I'd say, send it to me. Let me take a look at it. Because I want to show you what experts are saying. This isn't David's opinion or, Keeping Current Matters opinion. This is what experts across the country are saying.
That's correct. And when you can come back with, okay, that was, hey, we don't have a crystal ball, but sure, I'm listening to Harvard Business Review. That's a great resource. When you're talking about the quality of the data that's out there, and especially that, news sources are really looking for you to get them more, it's really, some of it's clickbait, right? Even
sure.
News sources. And I got bit on one, just as an example. Business Insider showed, the photo was a big, long unemployment line, and it said unemployment hits. This was a little earlier in the pandemic, so I was a little more freaked out as it was. and it says, unemployment in Los Angeles hits 50%. And I was shaken because obviously we've got the stay-at-home orders, and I'm like, it's not impossible, but I was like, wow, because I know that the Great Depression, you're talking about more than double the Great Depression. So I freaked out, but then you read down into the article and you find out, oh, that's not the case at all. They're counting all the people that elderly or disabled or people that aren't in the workforce at all, and or in between jobs, especially in Los Angeles, you get, we were at over 40% by that measure before the pandemic. And so after that, honestly, and I've always thought of Business Insider as a pretty good news source, and I'm like, you know what? Never again. So it really is important to you don't have to be right every time, but at least be honest about it and have great sources. So you're helping us with that a lot.
And that would be my position as well, in certainly keeping current matters. And here's what I would say on that, to your point, where you say, okay, this is a Harvard Business Review study, and this is what Harvard's saying. But here's the key. And as that changes, if I'm the agent speaking right now, I'm going to keep you up to date. That should be our position. I'm not locked into a VAU or anything. I'm locked into bringing you the best information possible today.
That's the key.
Go ahead.
No, that's the key. I just want to touch on this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dave. I'm really passionate about this part because every time we go out and take a stance on anything, people quickly come in and judge, and they're like, no, where did you get this data? This and that. No, you shouldn't be doing. I'm like, you know what? It's important that we go out and talk to people and do our best to bring reason to calming people down and show positivity through data that we have. And if we're wrong, it's important to also understand that our standing can change. It's okay as long as we're bringing data along with it and saying, look, this is where we got the information from. This is how we're interpreting it. This could happen, but we're going so fast. Next week, I could change my mind and tell you something different. The point is that we're bringing you relevant information and we're using it for our audiences, right? So if you're a real estate agent, which everybody here is, you should be looking to do exactly what Paul said, which is, how are you using this data to help you look like the professional that you're claiming to be?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
And that's really a big point. And I'm going to share my screen and get on this question about 2008, because, the idea that, we're going to get that opinion, that data is alive and well. And one of those things that, is happening right now is a lot of people say, okay, is this going to be 2008 all over again? Are we about to see this, this collapse of the housing market? So I want to address that real quick and even bring some information in that we got in our office late last night that it's pretty amazing. So first I'll start with this slide of annual home price appreciation. You may have seen this before, but it shows on the left the 6 years leading up to the housing crash, on the right the 6 years leading up to today. And just visually, when you look at it, you can see a dramatic difference. And back leading up to the housing crash, I would say in this country, we had runaway appreciation, almost like a runaway train that was ready to go off a cliff or, crash somewhere. And that runaway appreciation led to a lot of the issues that we had back then. And today we don't see appreciation anywhere near in the 6 years leading up that we saw back then. And matter of fact, I always draw this out that in 2017, the highest year of appreciation isn't even equal to the lowest year of appreciation in 2001. So big difference in the two markets. The next are months of inventory. And again, this picture tells 1,000, it's worth 1,000 words, in that in 2008, we literally had an oversupply of homes on the market. If we take this neutral market analogy of, you can see there 10 to 11 months across the country, and certainly is going to vary by region, by price point, things like that. And today, what do we know about this year? We entered the year thinking the biggest challenge we were going to have is inventory, or the lack thereof, for people that want to buy homes, the available homes for purchase. And that oversupply back in 2008 led to a lot of the issues that we had back then in this, this literally this glut of homes on the market. And so very different very different perspective on inventory today than what we saw then. The next slide is one that I've used before, and is just every time I show it, just the reality sinks in. And this is the total home equity cashed out across this country. Think about this as cash out refis that people would do on their homes. And the 3 years leading up to the crash, $824 billion was done as cash out refis across the country. In the 3 years leading up to today on the right, that number is 232 billion. Interesting thing when you look at that number, the total of cash out refis for the 3 years leading up to today isn't equal to 1 year leading up to the housing crash. And I think, Paul and Tristan, that the idea that one, consumers learned some lessons back in 2008 and are treating equity differently today, you can look at this and go, yeah, that's true. And doing things in a way where they say, I don't want to repeat maybe some of the same lessons, or fall prey to some of the things that happened to me, where I owned a home in 2008 and it lost value and I literally owed more on it than was worth it. It didn't make sense anymore. We're in a dramatically different situation with the way people are handling equity today than back then.
And then also, first of all, you do have a 10-year difference. So the dollars today versus those would make that number shrink even more, or the converse, which is 10 years ago people had taken even more money out. Now, where that left the United States in terms of equity on the table was, again, it was a Harvard study, but it was published in Housing Wire. You can look it up, Housing Wire. In 2007, in 2011, there was $7 trillion worth of home equity collectively aggregate in the United States. And then 2018, there was 15.5 trillion. So Americans are sitting with more than double the equity in their homes just over that course of time. And what that tells you is that the housing market was very, very healthy and very safe. So one of the things when banks are looking at people in crisis right now, it makes sense. It makes financial sense for them. Forget about the good thing to do. It makes financial sense for them to say, oh yeah, hey, we'll defer some payments. Okay. Because back then, David's graphs are showing, you get to the edge of the cliff and you fall off the edge of the cliff, and then people don't make their mortgage payment. Okay. And the best thing for the bank to do is run out and grab that property. Why give a 3-month deferral when by the time we get our property back, it's just going to even get worse? But here, they take an asset that has a lot of equity, or not. Across the board, they're giving these deferrals, and they go, okay, well, we'll just create that as a performing asset because we won't force them to pay for a few months. Now they don't have to write it off as a bad asset on their books, and then also they're still safe. So that's what the major banks are thinking.
Yeah.
And that chart that you showed is a good example. It ties very nicely in with the it wasn't a chart, but information that you could easily make into a chart from Housing Wire on the current aggregate equity in the American homes. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's shocking, and you're really setting me up well, Paul, for my next slide, because I'm going to go deeper on that. But let me say something about what you said. In 2010, I worked for the bank that was the largest holder of REO properties at that time in this country. And the one thing I'll guarantee you is no matter what, they don't want to repeat that. Whatever banks can do, whatever the federal government can do to not repeat that, they're going to do. And that is, I believe, one of the biggest drivers behind the liquidity and the money that's being dumped into our industry. And certainly on the mortgage side, there are a lot of opinions, a lot of accurate opinions on that, on the challenges that we're facing because of that. But let's continue this conversation in the sense of, let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. I'm getting off track here. All right, can you see that slide still with me?
Yeah.
I want to show something to you on this slide too. I just dropped this in there. This one looks a little bit different because it's got my name at the bottom. If you do decide you want to become a Keeping Current Matters subscriber, you can put your brand on these slides and share them on social media, share them on whatever you're doing, and really put them out in the market like that. And I would highly encourage you to do that if you want to do that. So let's go back to that conversation, Paul, about equity. This was just, I just got this information yesterday. I think John Burns Consulting released it recently here in the week, but it's the percentage of homeowner equity in 2020, and it's shocking. This is an update. This is the latest information. If you don't know John Burns Consulting, they are a consulting firm. They're actually in your backyard there in Southern California that works with a lot of hedge funds, a lot of large builders in our industry providing data. And 42.1% of the homes in this country right now are owned free and clear. I mean, that when I saw that, I'm like, wow. That number is growing. 16.6% of the homes have between 60 and 99% equity in them. And you can go on down the row and see that. But the way that homeowners have handled equity in the last 10 years is dramatically different. And I'll show you the next version of this slide. What we know today.
That's safety right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, going back to the point that I mentioned, there were a lot of lessons learned in 2008 that people said, I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to be back there.
No, it's interesting, David, because a lot of people aren't bringing that up. Paul, had you seen that before? I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, it certainly came to me when I did the Housing Wire, when I saw the Harvard study published on Housing Wire, but I didn't bring it all the way. First of all, if you're anything like me, and I think a lot of realtors and a lot of people are, to see it in a graph the way that David puts it out there is a huge difference, makes a huge difference. And the other thing too is, again, I'm always thinking, what does this mean to our audience, right? And first of all, every bit of information that you're giving is so relevant and backed up by great sources that I'm going to be a sponge. I'm going to grab all this information because it's the fastest, quickest way to make me an expert. And that's very important as a realtor. But also the communication to buyers and sellers is, hey, this market is way safer than we thought it was. So, we can still transact in this market without getting super nervous about what's going to happen. And especially when you look at these indicators, like there are people in the chat box saying, quarter two, quarter three, how can it be anything other than a total disaster? And that makes sense, but it is because we're literally forced to not do business. Does that pent up demand? What does that do for us? So again, distinguishing this from other times, very important. Yeah.
And I think that Paul, of that conversation, I threw this slide up there as a continuation of the last one. It shows, almost 60% of America have at least 60% equity, 58.7. We mentioned before, 42% of the homes are owned free and clear. And then CoreLogic came out most recently with the average equity of a home that has a mortgage on it in this country is $177,000. And so while that doesn't answer every question about why this won't be 2008, it does suggest and build a case for things are dramatically different right now. And the way that homeowners have leveraged or doubled down on equity is significant. So I'm going to keep moving along so we don't run out of time here. I have a quick slide in here. If you want to grab this stuff, Paul, you said to be the expert. That is our goal. I mean, I'm in my house right now, but if we were in the KCM office, we'd walk in the door and there's a 30-foot wall that says, we exist so that every buyer and seller would feel confident about buying a home. And that's what we want to give you, is the tools and resources for folks to be able to do that. It's $25 a month. I always tell people, if you find somebody cheaper that'll do it, tell me about them because we might subscribe to them.
So, that's a funny one.
I'll move off of that, but anyway, we can help.
You've got my $25. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's turn this corner and let's continue this conversation, because what's going to heat up now is this talk of recession. A technical definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with negative GDP. Now we've got one. We're pretty sure we're going to have 2. I think we're going to look back on this time and say, hey, we were in recession, but we're going to need that as a technical definition. And here's what Mark Fleming from First American says about that. He said, many still bear scars from the Great Recession and may expect the housing market to follow a similar trajectory in response to the coronavirus outbreak. But there are distinct differences that indicate the housing market may follow a much different path, all the stuff we talked about. And while housing led the recession in 2008 and 2009, this time it may be poised to bring us out of it. So what's Mark saying? People were hurt in 2008. We lost homes, we lost jobs, financially we lost, and we were hurt. And when you're hurt, you expect to be hurt again. And so it's logical for somebody to think that this could be 2008 all over again. It's very logical.
Also 9 out of the last 10 recessions were led or at least preceded by a big drop in the housing market, and this is a different one. So that's another stat to throw in the mix with this.
Totally. And to remember, we're dealing with an external health crisis that fundamentally our economy, we go back to the first of the year, we look at starts, we look at all the activity in the market, and from a technical standpoint, it looks great, right? Outside of this pause button being pressed. But the word that I think we need to get out there is this idea that recession does not equal housing crisis. And so what our team did is we went back and looked at past recessions and their impact on housing prices. Did they depreciate? Did they appreciate? And you can see this graph right here using CoreLogic data. What we all remember is 2008, where home values across the country lost almost 20%. But when we turn the corner and we look at the 4 prior recessions, we can see 3 out of 4 of those recessions we actually gained value. 2 of the times we gained over 6% nationally in home values. In one time we had a depreciation of 1.9%. But equating recession to housing crash or housing depreciation, just simply over the going all the way back to this study actually started in 1975. When you look at that time, it's just not true. Now, 2008 skews that. We remember that, but being able to get that information out in the market is key. There's some other things that keep in current matters that I haven't gone over today, with the difference in, payment. And when we look at the 2 markets, the difference in lending standards, and it's dramatic. It's dramatically different. So the next question that I'll kind of throw out there is this: what about all the job losses? And you mentioned that, Paul, in the article that you saw. I have taken a lot of our information out on job loss for a couple of reasons. We are looking forward to the May 8th report, which is Friday, which will get the second look, or what I'll call the first real look, at unemployment across the country. I will tell you, we are working on a blog right now on the KCM blog that's going to run in the next couple of days specifically on unemployment. And a couple of things that are happening right now. We saw this surge in unemployment, and no doubt we've seen a surge in unemployment this past month, but since we saw the surge the middle of March, we've come down each week since then, and these are initial claims of people filing for claims. We know, if you read and do some research and digging, a big piece of those people have found jobs, which is great news. I spent some time this morning reviewing a lot of data from ADP and an interview with their CEO, where they've said, hey, we think we've seen the bottom in this. We're not saying people are hiring, but they're certainly, not cutting back like they were. So my hope is that we've seen the bottom in that. But on Friday, we'll have all of that information ready for you, and our team's ready to pull all of that information out on who's lost their job, how quickly do we believe they will be back and employed. So a lot of questions to answer there, a lot of things happening in the market, and this will be a big week for all that information. But here, if I could give you any advice on it, what I know will happen is that on Friday, when the jobs report comes out, there will be a big deal made about it, and there should be. It's unbelievable the number of people that have lost their jobs over the last, whatever it's been, 5 or 6 weeks. And in that, my argument would be, it's not news. We already know that. The question now is, how long will they have lost their job for? But be prepared to answer those questions in the market as people go, what's going to happen? There's significant unemployment right now. And what's that going to mean to housing? Now, we've done a lot on this. Tristan, you've seen some of it on the depth and length of unemployment. I could spend a lot of time just talking about that. But once we go through, we get the data on Friday, I'll have more for you.
I think there's also, without having a crystal ball for sure, you can definitely draw a distinction between a foundational job loss due to a foundational or structural change than this sort of one-hit shock to the economy that was caused by something non-economic. Now, the non-economic thing is certainly having an economic impact,
Sure.
but as your housing slide showed, we were really in a healthy housing market, healthy economy. So when someone's unemployed, is that because that business that they worked for has gone out of business permanently, or as soon as we figure out how to get back into business, these will reopen? And what part of the workforce is unemployed by losing a job from a company that will never get back in business or won't get back in business for a long time versus on the sidelines? So
That's the question, dude. That is the key question. And when you answer that, the answer is positive, right? It just means that we're all in pause. All of us are in pause.
yes.
Yeah.
And there's certainly some businesses I've seen, that they're done. Okay. But that business, I would argue, was already right on the verge of being done anyway.
Yeah.
If you're getting ready to, if a 1 month or 2 month shock is going to put you out of business, right now, then, where were you anyway? And a lot of people, if we don't have the exact stats, I think as realtors, we can certainly say, look, this is not permanent unemployment. A large percent of it is not.
Yeah, I think that point is a big point, and the idea of unemployment. I'll tell you how that conversation is had. And so in the first pass of it, we gave KCM members and everybody the first show, which was only 700,000 jobs. I can tell you 60% of those were people that were in the restaurant business. And then we broke it down by category of, I think it was 7 to 8 categories across, from construction to childcare to healthcare, people working in doctors' offices. And what we know is that as companies come back online, those people will come back. Now, I'm not saying that there's not going to be companies that are going to pay a price for this, because we know they are. But if we break that down logically, and we take a restaurant, for example, because the counter to that would be, well, the restaurant in my neighborhood that serves 100 people on a Friday night, what if they can't do that? What if they can only serve 50 people or 25 people? My response to that would be, the other 75 or 50 they're not going to not eat. They're going to still eat. And there will be a business that comes up to serve that need for that individual. And so I think we have to remember, and we I don't know if you guys saw the Warren Buffett quote this weekend, like, the American economy will come back and go on. There are tough questions to answer, no doubt, but looking at the data to inform yourself and thinking about, okay, what is going to happen is the wisest way to be able to answer those questions as people have them, saying, hey, I want to wait on the sidelines to see how this is all going to happen. So,
David, where would we go to get all of these slides? Are you going to email that to us? Is there a place?
I'm going to email that to you. Yeah. Paul, I don't have your email address, but I'll send it to Tristan. He can forward it on, or if you want to send it to me, Tristan. Yeah. Okay. But you can also go to keepingcurrentmatters.com/coronavirus. And I just want to make this point to get the most up-to-date slides, because these things change from time to time. It's even when you and I did something, 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, Tristan, and somebody's sharing that now, I would not share that now, because this, I'll give you an example. GDP used to be forecast on a quarterly basis. We've been at places now where people, are forecasting it, organizations sometimes weekly now. So things are changing extremely fast.
Very true. Very true. Paul, you want to add anything here, or David, anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing. Do I have time to share one more? Are we running over?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to share this one, kind of last set of slides here, and it's titled "The Biggest Threat," really to our business. And I'll start out here from a quote from the Z report. It says, "We note that the inventory as a percent of households sits at the lowest point ever." Now, the Z report is a financial, housing consulting firm that reports on, a lot of things in our market. We subscribe to their report, Keeping Current Matters. But this idea of inventory is the challenge right now. NAR just released buyer and seller traffic, and I want to show those to you visually. And Paul, you mentioned the power of a visual in today's market, where I can look at something and I go, I get it. It is extremely, extremely relevant today. So this is a look at March buyer traffic. So you see the dark blue is representative of strong buyer traffic. The lighter blue is representative of stable buyer traffic. And there's a gray in there that is weak buyer traffic. And let me tell you what you don't see, any gray. So buyers are out in the markets. Buyer traffic, as it's reported here, is out there. And so something, key to remember, if somebody's thinking, well, should I sell my house? Should I do something? Buyers are out in the market. Now let's take a look at what's going on with seller traffic. And I want to start with February. You can see we started off the year. We have some gray up here, predominantly in the northern half of the country, but stable traffic starting to come on in a couple of places. Some strong traffic. Remember, strong is the dark blue, but starting to happen. And then what happened to sellers in March? They fell off the map. We have a couple of states where it's stable, but it is weak across the country. And so being able to get out there with the message, if you do need to sell your house, you want to sell your house, all those things, that there are buyers in the market, and the one thing we need is inventory right now. I'm going to kind of round out on that, but an interesting look at what's forming as we kind of go into into this month of May and then into June, and things start to open up. A lot of questions to be answered, but hopefully I've given you a few things that you'll be able to share. And again, if you want to come on this journey with us at Keeping Current Matters, we'd love to have you.
I love it, dude. I'm going to share those links. Oh, we already did. Perfect. There's the link. I'm going to send it over to Paul and AJ, and then they'll send it over to the region as well.
Perfect.
David, thanks for being on, dude. Thanks for being awesome all the time and providing great content.
This has been really amazing. Tristan assured me that when we get you on, that it'll just blow up with information. And we've had as many as 3,000 people on our Zoom webinar. And when I look and I see how many, we've got great folks on today for sure, but anybody that's missing out on this is missing an opportunity to stand head and shoulders above the rest in their market, for sure.
Yeah. Anytime you guys want me back, Tristan knows how to get me. Text me on a Friday night and say, hey, can you do it? And if we can pull it off, we'll be back. I mean, we made a decision 7 weeks ago, Tristan, the CEO of Keeping Current Matters, Bill Harney, that we wanted to help as many people in our industry as we could and help our members as well. And so we are there. We'll do whatever we can to help you guys and bring you the most current information.
Paul, let's bring back David maybe 4 or 5 weeks from now, so we can see the end of this, or
absolutely, especially once the new numbers, the unemployment numbers come out. It'd be very important to get that analyzed in a different way, because you can, just like I said with that Business Insider article that made me crazy, they're gonna clickbait us. They don't care whether it scares the people, buyers and sellers, let alone everyone else participating in the economy. They don't care if it scares us to death, because they're interested in more clicks. And consumer confidence is one of the most powerful pieces. And I hate to see that information go out that's not fair or slanted, just looking to get the clicks.
Yeah. Our goal right now here, I would kind of end on this thought, is we want to tell people the truth, and we want to trust their intelligence, and say, okay, here's what's happening, and bringing facts and data to the market. And again, there are a lot of questions to be answered. I'm not saying we have the answers to all of them, or we have a crystal ball in any stretch of the imagination, but being able to analyze the data and say, this is what's happening, is the best position we're in to serve the people that we're serving so they can make confident decisions. So I appreciate it. It's great to be on today. And again, let's find another time. I'd be happy to come back.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Really appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch. I'll get your info from Tristan, and look forward to chatting with you as well, and see what the region can do to work more with your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. All right. Have a great rest of this day. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.